The red light blinked on. Not the kind that demanded performance, but the kind that simply said, "Now we're listening." Robert leaned back slightly, not away from the microphone but into the moment. He'd learned long ago that the best conversations weren't pushed forward, they unfolded when space was given. Across from him, Jessica adjusted her headphones, eyes alert, already scanning the unseen terrain the way she always did, like a tracker at the edge of a tree line. They smiled. Not because this was rehearsed, but because this was familiar ground. "Last time we talked," Robert said gently, "we opened a lot of doors. We didn't try to walk through all of them. But some of them stayed open." Jessica nodded. "Some of them never really close once you notice them." And just like that, the map disappeared. The places between they began where all good stories begin, with witnesses. Not sensational ones. Not shaky videos or secondhand hysteria. But patterns. Forests where sound seemed to bend. Caves where compasses lost their minds. Highways where Dogmen sightings clustered like punctuation marks in the margins of civilization. Mountain ranges where Sasquatch wasn't just seen, but felt. "What if," Robert offered, "these beings aren't hiding from us?" Jessica tilted her head. "Go on. What if they're simply operating in places where reality thins out, where phase, frequency, or perception doesn't behave the way we expect?" She smiled. "You know how many witnesses say something like that without having the language for it?" They weren't talking about monsters. They were talking about liminal zones, the places between what we measure and what we experience. The old builders somewhere in the conversation. The forests gave way to cities. Or what remained of them. Domes. Spires. Star forts. Architecture so overbuilt, so harmonically precise, it made modern structures look like temporary thoughts. Jessica mentioned old courthouses and abandoned churches, places where people reported strange acoustics, lost time, or overwhelming emotion. Robert had been waiting for that. "What if those buildings weren't designed to dominate," he said, "but to tune?" The idea hung in the air. Sound. Geometry. Water. Earth currents. Not power plants, instruments. A civilization that didn't extract energy from the planet but collaborated with it. And if that's true, Jessica added slowly, then tearing them down wasn't just erasing history, it was disabling infrastructure. Robert finished. They didn't say Tartaria outright at first. They didn't need to. The implication was enough. The neighbors, when the conversation drifted skyward, it didn't accelerate, it clarified. Flying saucers weren't machines in the way people expected. They were behaviors. Effects. Responses to fields. Robert spoke of growing up under Cold War skies, of fear manufactured to keep people small and obedient. Jessica spoke of modern witnesses, calm, articulate, unafraid. "Maybe," she said, "we're finally ready to stop asking if they're real. And start asking what kind of physics we're missing," Robert replied. They didn't frame UFOs as invaders. They framed them as neighbors operating under different rules of engagement, rules closer to resonance than propulsion. The long now time entered the room quietly. It always does. Not as a machine, but as a question. "What if," Robert said, "time isn't something we move through, but something that responds to coherence?" Jessica leaned forward. "You're saying consciousness isn't just observing events. It may be participating in their selection. Witnesses who lost hours. People who returned changed. Memories that didn't line up, but felt true. Portals not as doors, but as alignments. Travel not as motion, but as permission. They didn't claim mastery. They claimed humility. Why it matters as the conversation wound toward its natural close, neither of them rushed to conclusions. That wasn't the point. The point was stewardship. There's a responsibility, Jessica said, when you talk about these things. Yes, Robert agreed. Because fear closes doors. Curiosity opens them. They invited stories. Not belief. Not obedience. Participation. Because the mystery wasn't something out there. It was something humanity had been circling for a very long time, waiting to remember how to approach without conquering. The red light blinked off. But the map didn't come back. And that was exactly right.